Welcome, everyone. We're going to be discussing today the impact of COVID-19 on digital transformation, how it's changed companies' plans, but also how is digital transformation going to enable the new way of doing things? Because we're all facing challenges. I myself, as you can probably see, I'm working from home. While I don't necessarily maybe miss the commute, it is bringing certain challenges to how things are done on a daily basis. I just want to go through and make a couple of introductions today. So my name is Alex Bellon. I'm from the London team of Creatio on the new business side. With me today, we've got Barney Holmes, the managing partner of Meritus Business Solutions. Also, William Zarbok, the co-founder of Meritus Business Solutions. Dr. Ashok Supia, the co-founder and CEO of Mitra Innovation. And Stefan Duda, the managing director of Qualisoft. So welcome to you all. I'm not sure if you guys have met before, but so I'm going to just also we will be joined shortly by Mike Reshape from the Kiev office. He's the director of sales there. So guys, to begin, I'm just going to go around my screen because this is not a physical event. I'm going to start with Ashok. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the projects you're working on at the moment with your clients? What kind of challenges are they facing, maybe on a vertical by vertical basis? And really, how are you at Mitra and obviously with Creatio, I know because I've worked with Mitra myself. How are you approaching these changes, and what kind of changes are you seeing? Are you seeing any adaptation of previous plans, or are you just seeing generally companies panicking to put in place solutions to the new real reality that we live in?
Thanks, Alex. First of all, thank you for inviting me. In terms of digital transformation, we've been working in that space for a few years. Because Mitra Innovation is a technology consultancy company based out of London. We became a Creatio partner a year ago. So we helped large corporates like Travis Perkins completely rebuild their organization. There are £6 billion a DIY organization, replacing their front end, connecting to their back end system, from data warehousing to legacy, etc. But in this particular year, obviously because of lockdown and COVID, organizations have to change, one to accommodate, like you said, Alex, employees to work from home, but even customers are working from home. So we are a consultancy company. All my employees, 200, are working from home, but at the same time, our customers also working from home. So it's a very complex structure to deal with. And even if you're developing any solution, whether it's a full technology or a low-code BPM technology like the Creatio platform, you have to understand what the customer wants. So it's really an interesting set of challenges. Agility comes really powerful. Design sprints are very powerful. 1 week sprints, can we do something within a week and get it out there? We are trying to specialize more on the healthcare space and the fintech space. So there are different needs in that space coming into the picture. So those organizations that traditionally focused on manual or semi-tech forms, I have a very, very large travel customer called TAG. I mean, they're huge. They're doing over 300 million euros in turnover worldwide. And obviously, because of no travel restriction, their businesses really took a big hit. But in the past, they were predominantly over the phone corporate account type of a trading. But as they emerge, eventually travel will pick up. They have to come up with completely new way of dealing with their customers, and we are starting to work with them and propose ideas. OpenReach, we reached out to them recently. We signed a trial agreement with them, with Creatio as well. That's more around front-end employees, so the employees who are going to field to install the broadband, etc. They are challenged in certain ways. So what can technology do? So there's a lot of curiosity at the moment. Everyone seems to know technology is essential. If you take 6 out of the top 10 largest organizations in the world, they are tech companies, whether we like it or not. So tech has become very important. The question is, how do you align that as part of your digital transformation to achieve either revenue increase? I think Gartner or Forrester said those organizations that align their digital transformation were able to deliver over 30% revenue growth or operational efficiency. Your supply chain, everything needs to work together. If I'm, online ordering has gone through the roof. But if your customer service is not integrated to your online ordering, your customer experience will drop, customer engagement will drop. I'm going to switch from, for example, I'm going to stop going to Ocado or Morrison and I'm going to Waitrose. Or you can any
absolutely.
Trade. Yeah,
absolutely. I wanted to ask you. So this is again a Forrester quote here, but CIOs are actually spending an average of 72% of their budgets on existing IT concerns. This is a really important point at the moment because with the advancement of low code in business, this 72% of their budget on existing IT concerns, that traditionally has been through fixing problems or changing the way things are done because things weren't correct the first time round. That I think is going to grow because coupled with the obvious, impact of COVID-19 at the moment, there are going to be new concerns that arise from previously solved problems. So would you say you're seeing an increase in the use of low code by businesses today? And are you seeing a genuine ROI impact from that based on the agility that it brings?
Excellent question. So if you look at the IT organization in large corporates, Barclays, Fidelity, etc., the CIO is under tremendous pressure to keep the lights on. The technology have to work, the trading flow has to work, you can't have any glitches. So they have to spend large percentage of their budget to make sure the security is there, backup is there, so they have to spend it. The power of low code, I think, is in the hands of business. It's the business, the line of business, which is dealing with the customers, have a brilliant idea. Low code enables you to build that application very quickly. So most of our Creatio sales are with the business directly. And even in the past, before coming to Creatio, I worked with OutSystem, another low code provider. They're very expensive, very sophisticated, trying to be in the banking sector. But you have to sell the OutSystems to the IT because it's just a kit. And you've got to build a lot of things on top of it. So if you go with the low code solution, with the BPM, with the workflow engine, everything bundled in, you go to the business and say, okay, you're trying to reach your employees or your customers in a particular way. Can I build this for you in 2 to 3 weeks? Obviously, we have to work with IT to integrate, make sure security is there. They might want a private cloud hosting, etc. So IT is very important. Now we're doing this with the Ramsay Hospital in Australia, which is the 5th largest hospital chain in the world. And we've done the business side. We went with the business to help the psychologists to treat the patients through the platform. But then we are working with IT as well to manage it in a different way. So it's been a very good experience. And I think it's a balancing act. CIOs knows it, but they can't change it overnight. And we need to work with the CIOs and the business to make the transformation, I would say. That's what I would answer.
Sure, that's very interesting because I know we certainly, when we were talking earlier, we mentioned Dynametics, which is basically your Mitra's application of Creatio with the use of low code is how you managed to deliver it to the market so quickly. But you've actually seen this used now as rapid procurement by companies for the track and trace requirements that they're facing now. So I think if anything is testament to low code being able to be used to solve a problem quickly, it's going to be something like that. And also, just to further the point that we were discussing earlier on in the day, I think being able to take out of the box solutions that are low code and then just minor changes to adapt them to your business, whatever it is that you're looking to do, is really the way forward at the moment. Because I don't know about everybody else, but certainly in the UK, the rules keep changing on almost a weekly basis. So what companies have to do in order to remain compliant or COVID compliant, is really a fast rolling ball. But I'm just going to move over. Thank you very much, Ashok, for your intelligent insights there. I'm going to move across my screen now to Bill. Bill, what can you tell us about some of the projects that you're working on, and what priorities do you think people should be focusing on at the moment from a technology perspective, given the current health crisis?
Well, I think COVID was just thrown upon the entire world. And so where we're talking about 72% of IT budgets were fashioned on sort of a non-traditional thing, I think that's changing. So I think those stats actually become dated very, very quickly. Where I think the necessity of digital transformation was just accelerated. It was already happening. You saw that there was adoption of online, and now if you want to order goods and have them in your home, you're going online. Companies have to service that through online. So it's changed everything. We see companies, though, very non-traditional online companies instantly forced into it. One, an insurance company that we deal with that sells insurance products. They're in the middle of their annual enrollment period. And their method of selling was holding seminars in hotels and various events where they could gather people together. That suddenly changed. And using Creatio, we were able to take their processes and move them to online webinars from concept to implementation in 6 weeks.
Wow.
And then through low code, which we keep talking about, every day there's a new set of emergency requirements that we're able to implement in a day or two for what would have taken weeks in the past. So I think that low code is a necessity. Online digital transformation is just thrown upon everybody. So we're going to begin to see it evolve more and more and more. And there's some aspects of this whole model is those that reach the market first tend to gain these network effects. The more people you have working within a model, the more valuable the model is to all. And so they're seeing that it's not a diminishing returns, it's an increasing returns as more people gravitate to it. So the early entrance into this can often be the winner takes all, of this. Look at Amazon, many times more than its next competitor. So I think we're seeing more and more of that. It's also forcing processes that one's never even thought of before to be able to digitize and put online, and it's across all industries. So that's kind of the way that I'm seeing it right now. We're just seeing everybody scrambling to figure out what to do next, doing things, and that's evolving. They'll begin to sharpen their focus as they go on, but there's no doubt everyone's headed to the cloud, they're headed online, and low code is an absolute driver of success.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I was going to ask you, so what do you think that they should be doing then? Do you think companies should be focusing on the phase of the crisis that they're in? Is it, or rather, what, in your opinion, but also what are you finding, I guess, is the question. Are you finding that they're scrambling to fit something for the time being, or are they really saying, look, well, let's do this once and let's do it right?
I don't think they've had the chance to think it all the way through. So they were scrambling. First thing is everybody's at home. So you first have to immobilize your workforce. So, Zoom, everybody has Zoom now. And if you look at that stock, it's going crazy. We're speaking on Zoom right now. This probably wouldn't have been possible a year ago, what we're doing right at this moment. And this, all of a sudden, here we're doing this. So you have to mobilize your employees, you have to have the right tools. And so it's the right software, the right tools to be able to support your customers, make your processes accessible to customers. So I think that just drives everything initially. And then once you have that in place, companies will begin to figure out how to extract value better than they are today. Just having something online is number one, but then how can you start servicing those needs in a way that it's actually better than before? And so I don't think there's any going back, frankly. I think it set the stage for what's going to be going forward. And I think it's only going to get better. But right now, I think we're just in a response to the situation. How do we survive mode? And then you were seeing more and more the concept of this company offering, webinars to their customers in the middle of their selling season. That could have never happened before.
Sure. I think in a way, again, it goes back to low code, doesn't it? Because even if they're scrambling to put a solution in place now, if they have that low code flexibility, then once they figure out what works for the new normal, then they can just make that change quickly. So it's not going to be a panic procurement followed by another expensive permanent one. It can just be one solution that, is this constantly evolving, adapting, beast that really does deliver in every situation, because ultimately, while one size doesn't fit all, certainly changing the size means you can adapt to the situation.
Absolutely.
Bill, thank you very much. Stefan, I'm going to move over to you now. I was going to ask going to take things in a different direction now. In terms of the changes that are happening, we can all see that life is completely flipped upside down. But do you think the qualities of a IT leader in this space need to now change? Do you think you need people with a new mentality, or do you think it's the technology that needs to change, but the leaders can stay the same?
Let me answer that question that way. I think the challenges in regards of human IT have stayed actually pretty much the same, meaning that you always have to translate what am I doing as a human, and then trying to digitalize what's been going on. But the technology that is supporting us in doing this has been, getting marvelous by now, as of the Creatio product at the end. So you could probably say that the challenges in undergoing such things are pretty much the same. It's just the speed in which we can adapt nowadays to those changes. It's fantastic.
So you could say that the companies need to accelerate.
They have to understand that it's like, putting your head into the ground, like I think it's the ostrich, the bird.
Yeah.
When fear is happening or when danger is approaching, that is not the approach that will help. So you, instead of just reacting, you have to proactively think, and that is what all the speakers have been saying so far, is that you have to have the technology that will support you to accelerate. Exactly, and that is, I think, why the slogan fits so good.
Well, that one was designed before the pandemic, but it's more true now than ever. So absolutely, definitely, I totally agree. I think personally that some of these, some tech leaders have been caught, let's say, offside in this situation. Companies are doing rapid procurements now because they didn't have the foresight to have that flexibility in the platform. The days of having something built bespoke for you and putting it in place and then sticking with it for 10 years. You just can't operate that way anymore. If something changes, are you going to go and spend millions again to rebuild something from scratch? It doesn't make sense. This sort of modularity almost of well, in a way, you could say that the thinking needs to be the same as the technology. It needs to be adaptable, right? So yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for your perspective. So over to you, Barney. My next question is, how would you justify the funding for changes if you've just purchased a system? So let's say that if you're a business and you are now facing challenges, but you've already just made a big investment, how can you justify in a time where budgets are tighter than ever to make an investment in something new? I mean, the ROI is obviously a huge argument here, and everybody understands that the substantial benefits that come from a flexible platform for your company. But how would you justify that to the board? Because as far as they're concerned, they're just seeing cost after cost.
Of course. So first of all, you need to take into consideration that the business is really going to be driving the decision and the cost behind it. So especially in a COVID environment, and we're seeing it today, companies are having to shift or transition to be able to continue to support the needs of the business. So most important, what you need to look at is, day one, can you continue to operate in a post-COVID environment? So we're working with many different companies, financial services, healthcare, and first key is, are my employees and are my customers safe? And then once they're safe, day two, how do we continue to operate and keep the lights on? And then very, very quickly, you begin to realize there's some areas that we need to invest in order to be able to keep the lights on and continue to transition and do business. One of our customers that we work with, everyone going home, large organization greater than 10,000 employees, suddenly they're sitting in a situation where we don't have sufficient bandwidth to be able to have our entire organization work from home. So suddenly we're needing to invest in the technology to be able to enable sort of greater bandwidth, invest in improving the sort of the remote desktops. And once you have that in place, how do you have the low code systems to be able to, low code, no code, sort of be able to implement new processes to be able to sort of continue to do business. So it almost becomes that business driving a decision to be able to invest. We need to invest in order to, one, keep the doors open, and two, continue to be competitive. And then from there, we've worked with a number of our different customers where in the post-COVID environment, once they have this in place and once they have the tools, and we follow an agile development process. And fortunately, over the last couple of years, we've moved away from the more traditional sort of methodologies, and agile combined with the low code, the rapid sort of deployment processes has allowed us to be able to, one, secure everything fine, and then almost improve upon our processes. One is we quickly realized you can work from home. Our organization, Meritus, for instance, was started in the cloud 10 years ago. We have offices, but we mostly support a work from home unless the employees want to do a sort of go into an office. And we've now seen that in large organizations. They're realizing that they can work from home and they can be competitive in this space. So they're giving their team, their sales force, their internal sort of sales baskets doing outbound dialing. They're giving them the technologies to be able to remain competitive. So it almost becomes you need to be able to identify where the need is, and then the justification of the spend almost becomes a necessity.
Absolutely. And I think so. There was a stat from BDO, which is a large accounting firm, that 68% of business executives actually said that making that, biting that bullet and making that digital investment actually led to substantial increases in revenues in the space of the last 12 months. So I think, and I certainly saw this during the first lockdown. Nobody really wanted to do anything. They all companies just sort of sat back and said, let's see how this plays out. But the smart ones were the ones that said, no, look, this is going to be a great opportunity to make a change for the positive, not just during the crisis, but for the future. And for example, on the complete extreme end of that, technology has enabled remote work and, automation of tasks to such an extent that the investment house Schroders has told its employees, you don't ever have to come back, not to work, but to the office. So, they're actually able now. I think the resistance to this idea in the past was that, look, if you don't have people in an office and you're just trusting them that they're working at home, it's a very blind kind of management. You don't really know where you're going. You don't have that visibility. Cloud-based CRMs make it all possible. You're able to see exactly what people are doing, how many emails they send, what you can even look at the content of them. So you're literally able to manage with full insight as if you were in the same room. And of course, as I think it was Bill mentioned earlier, it is perfectly possible now to have a call like this with your staff. So, for all intents and purposes, you may as well be in the same room. So I think a lot of people are using technology to enable, not just for now, but they're kind of looking further than just the crisis at the moment. What would you say the main priorities are now, on aggregate for all companies? So from my perspective, I think certainly in the UK, the track and trace is going to be one element that addresses almost, or at least touches almost all businesses. Is there anything else that you think would be applicable to every company, irrespective of the vertical?
So first of all, I just wanted to add to that as well and say, having the Zoom calls and having the interface, like I said, everybody's doing it now. And to a degree, we've almost found that it's leveled the playing field, because in the past, traditionally, if we're not on site working with our customers, if we're not able to walk over and knock on the door and say, hey, can I get 5 minutes of your time? Sometimes it was more difficult to be able to open it up. We're almost finding that in this Zoom world, it's become more a sort of interactive, and it's easier for us to be able to say, hey, let's just quickly get onto a Zoom session, let's have a discussion. And it allows us to be able to more easily connect with individuals, bring them together, where sometimes there was always that sort of a barrier where, because we're not in the same office, it was more difficult to schedule a meeting, get on a phone call. Now everyone's just, where they are, they're working from their home office. Let's just get on a Zoom.
Yeah, and also, for example, like do you have a prestigious office? Well, if you're a startup and you're trying to get going, but actually you've got a really great product, you're not going to be able to afford prime real estate in the center of London. So the big boys are getting all the business, even though you may have something that's actually better. So I completely agree with that. That's actually a really good observation.
Certainly helps.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Back to, sorry, I didn't want to take you off. The question, would you mind just going back to it? What was the...
Oh, yeah, sure. So I was just asking sort of what do you think is a universal change for everybody? So with the exception of maybe working from home and needing a sort of a, let's say, a cloud-based CRM and some sort of video calling tool, which I think, as you say, most companies now have. Is there anything that you think, maybe with the exception of track and trace as well, because that's something that we already talked about, is there anything else that you see that really all companies are going to have to face as a both challenge and something that they need to find a solution for?
Looking for new ways to remain competitive in this space. A lot of organizations that we work with are heavily dependent on an external sales force. And that external sales team would traditionally go out, knock on doors, sit down and have conversations, both on the financial services as well in the healthcare space. So we know that that's changing in the track and trace environment. People are, even as they begin to open, they're more sort of considerate and a little bit more restrained in allowing people to come in. So trying to find, how do you still connect with your customers? How do you still stay in front of them, and how are you sort of meeting their needs? So that's the biggest thing, and having the technologies and the tools to be able to adjust either from the sales, from the marketing side, to be able to make sure that you can still connect with your customers in a virtual world.
Absolutely. So would you say that technology has killed the door-to-door salesman?
Definitely hasn't killed it, but it certainly changed it, and it's enabled them to be able to do more. You're never going to completely kill it. It will always be there, and there'll always be that need for it. It's just, how do we adapt during these times of transition?
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you for your insight. I'm going to go back to Ashok now. If you could just sort of give us some ideas about some of the things that maybe you're building for the future, things that are really after COVID and not just for the time being. Is there anything that you see as something that's going to be a permanent change down the line, something that perhaps at the moment isn't feasible but will be the new way?
Yeah, I'm happy to share some knowledge, and also just to pick on what Barney was saying in terms of universal change. I think the sales force, how they sell, is changing, but we should also not forget that large corporates with hundreds and thousands of employees is changing how they collaborate with each other. They don't have the corridor talks. You stand by the coffee machine or the cooler box. You don't have those in the digital world. I was actually listening to, I think, the CEO of Coca-Cola the other day, and they are apparently introducing 10 minutes compulsory coffee break in Zoom calls, which is...
That's very interesting, actually. Yeah.
Why not, right?
Why not? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I certainly remember the sort of controversy that the Google offices got when they opened, sort of, and how they've been. Their work approach is very much work should be play, right? So it's all bean bags and free fruit and things like this. But how do you do that from home is the question. So yeah, I guess there are those types of challenges where. And this will probably affect more how you configure your processes or your organization within a software, but not so much the software itself. Incidentally, do you think automation is going to start making more headway than it already was, or do you think that the relative trend of automation will be unaffected for the time being?
There's a good example recently. A very good friend of mine is a very famous doctor in the UK. I was talking to him, and he said pre-COVID in the UK, I'm talking about UK, other countries have different way of handling patients. The use of technology by the medical professionals for remote consultation was like less than 10% in the UK.
Yeah.
During COVID, it's 97%. That's a good example of automation, how it's changing the way the world is operating. And now NHS, similarly, the medical board in Australia are mandating their doctors to use medical technology to interact with the patients, and so on, right? So automation is here. It's arrived. We are using it. Organizations are using it. I think where we are going to see challenges, and you see this in Gartner and WHO, and everybody saying the impact on our mental health is going to be very high. It's almost going to go up to 15 to 20% worldwide. So we as technology specialists, we offer technology products to our customers. You provide technology as a product, and corporate uses this technology to provide goods and services to their customers, right? So we have a duty of care to care for our employees and our customers and partners as an ecosystem. So how do we handle this? So we embarked on a program early this year, and of course COVID accelerated it, into looking at this problem. And now we are working with a lot of organizations on the corporate side, but we also now getting in front of UNICEF, WHO, Commonwealth, 3 organizations, to understand where the mental health challenges, whether it's a depression, anxiety, whatever. And if you're working from home, there are a lot of issues you have to deal with, and you're not in front of your colleagues all the time. So what can technology help to handle the collaboration, the social element of it? That's on the corporate setting. And then on the patient setting, the patient-doctor relationship as well.
Yeah, well, that's particularly interesting. So, sorry to interrupt you. That's particularly interesting just because on that point, even to this day, the NHS patient records are still largely on paper. So even that there is no central database. So I think particularly the medical profession, for whatever reason it may be, has only until now been quite sort of behind in a sense. Maybe not the big pharmaceuticals, but certainly the sort of family doctor, your local GP surgery, that it wasn't the most, let's say, tech savvy place. So certainly, and I think just on your point about the collaboration tools, they're important for business. But yeah, I mean, the Coca-Cola 10-minute coffee Zoom call, or I know our team has a 5:30 or 6:30 p.m. On Wednesday Zoom social. So it's a way to overcome the social distancing as well. Definitely on a non-business side. Maintain, well, the morale of your workforce is very important, and if people are unhappy, they're not going to be productive. So providing for that, the mental health side as well, as you say, the duty of care is really paramount to, particularly for sales guys. If you've got a depressed sales force, they're not going to sell anything. So it's just a fact. So that's basically, I think, another thing that's that companies need to think about. What's happening outside the work hours, and obviously it can be optional. It doesn't have to be something that you force people into, but still considering those things is definitely important for the mental health.
Exactly. So what we have done, Alex, is we took the Creatio platform, the BPM, workflow, the cloud hosting, security, and we built all the mental health management modules by working with doctors. So we were working with psychologists, GPs from US to Australia. So we even working with a couple of associations in Seattle on this one. And we developed a lot of workflows that are required to handle employees' challenges in a corporate environment, whether they are in the office, when I say office, desk-based, so they can be working from home, or you still have a lot of employees who are on the field, right? If you're a telecom service provider or a British Gas, or if you're in oil and rig, you're still at the site working. If you're in a construction space, you're at the site working. And how do you care for them? So we kind of build the modules around that. And then we also build a module for GPs and hospitals to provide mental health program digitally to the patients, which doesn't exist at the moment globally. If you really see globally, there are 1 or 2 products, but there are no technology exists today for medical professionals to handle mental health with the mental patients. So we kind of build those modules. We've taken it to the market. We already got 3 customers using it. And we have 3 more trials almost signed to go live in this quarter, which will put us in a great place for next year to help those customers worldwide. So
Excellent.
Exciting times.
That's really excellent. I thought I'd just take this moment to mention as well, guys, if anyone wants to jump in with questions, please do put them in the chat. I've got one here that's asking whether it's possible to build apps without IT involvement. I guess, yes, it is with the right technology. I think what's happened a lot, and again, this has been the case recently with a joint project with Mitra that I worked on, is the client wanted to help wanted somebody to help them get started professionally, but then obviously with the low code they can maintain things going forward. So this was an education's business which was doing education through sport, but nevertheless, a lot of the time I see this as well. Companies are interested in low code technology which they can maintain, but initially they would like a bit of help with it. Not all the time, but nevertheless, the point is it's definitely possible to build apps without IT involvement, providing you either have coding knowledge if you're going to be really doing complex stuff, but ultimately, if you're somebody like me who is not the most IT savvy person, but you wanted to build something, then low code is definitely the way to go. So that's the only way you're really going to be able to do that. And it's literally, it's actually drag and drop in most cases. So it's very, very simple to manage. Just going back to Stefan, how many clients do you think are adopting low code because they want to form citizen developers within their organization? Is that something that you're seeing a lot? Are they still relying heavily on professional services, or are they just getting started with that and then moving forward to more sort of internal amending?
Actually, both. And I have to tell you, it greatly depends on the leaders and of the organization itself. Meaning, if this organization, how should I say, has been stayed the same for almost 10 or more years, they're probably hire some consultant services, in order to do all those things for them.
Yeah.
But if the organization is already, working also in some kind of a Scrum methodology, and they're used to it, so organize themselves in teams, have maybe generation XYZ on board, then of course they will greatly invest in educating their people how to work with this platform. And when I say work, not only use it, but also adjust it and adapt it.
Sure. So and is that something that you're noticing any change in, or is that sort of is that a trend that you've seen before COVID? Has anything changed as a result of the virus?
Let me put it that way. I guess COVID was kind of a fire accelerator for them, and then seeing the need for handling those changes themselves. So you could say that COVID is just pushing this. On the other side, if you're looking at it from a business perspective view, I'm also thinking of that. I can at least say for my region where I'm working in, which is Europe, we're always a little bit on the brake, meaning let everybody else doing the mistakes first, and then we jump in.
I think people will take that attitude with the vaccine maybe when it comes as well. Yeah.
But I'm seeing those changes happening, and then I'm seeing also in other regions that there are highly encouraging on those types of technology. But I'm seeing here the awareness rise, and people are start to think about, hey, what can I actually do with all that? And I'm just actually working on a POC that had started off with just sales, but right now this POC has extended to marketing, service, accounting, so bookkeeping is now in there. So it's like growing rapidly, because finally the organization is realizing, hey, what this tool is capable of, and we're like, okay, please slow down, We'll always trying our best, but please, one step at a time.
Yeah, sure. No, that's something I see as well. I think a lot of companies they start with an idea, and then they go in with this fear that it's going to be monumental cost, it's going to take a long time, and let's just do one thing at a, let's not overburden ourselves. But when they see how easy it is nowadays with new low code technology, just to we'll make this change, don't worry, 15 minutes, or come back to me tomorrow, it's done, that then kind of opens their eyes. I think they look at it and they think, well, do you know what, maybe now is our time. We're all working from home, particularly during the furlough. Everyone was a lot of companies just closed for some time. So why not just make the change now, be more efficient going forward, and see your revenues grow. I think that's certainly from my end, that's the message at the moment. And it's probably seconded by most sort of, particularly the larger companies. They really understand this. They really see that during these times, it's best to invest and not actually to sit there and, kind of withdraw into your shell, because these are the opportunities where everything is shut and it's downtime. It's like, to give a sort of crude example, it's very, very difficult to do maintenance on key roadways, motorways, highways in a country. But when no one was at work, they've done it all. It's like, that's the time. There's your window. There's your window of opportunity to get it done. So absolutely, I completely agree. Just going back to
here, Alex.
Sorry, go on, Mike.
Yeah, most of the companies, even the ones who become our customers, right? We sign with them for CRM, for example. They do not fully understand the whole potential of the low code, right? And the whole flexibility it offers to them. And they might work, like, for example, a year with our product, like using a common CRM functionality, before they discover the flexibility offered by a low code. Yesterday, actually, I had a conversation with the customer. He was given a reference to our potential customer. He said he's the head of the BI department in the company. He says that, and we've been working for a year and a half with them already. So he said that now I'm overwhelmed with the requests of business for some minor or major changes, right? And the business asks their team, like in-house BI team, to actually develop these changes, change the workflows, develop a new business process or something like that, do some UI configuration. It's all on them now. He said, I had like a better times when all these requests were navigated directly to Creatio, but now people understood that it can be done much faster, right, with our in-house resources. So the biggest problem I have now is where to find the people to extend my team to handle all of those requests, right? And this is a good problem to have. And actually, business benefits a lot out of that. So our goal as a vendor and as partner to be very sharp in explaining the value of low code and bringing these use cases, to right in front of our customers so that they can see how easy it is to do the configuration and which power it brings and how business can benefit out of it, right? Because it might not be like obvious at the first glance, especially to those who never worked or never faced the technology of that sort before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, no, I totally agree. Are you, Mike, do you want to, did you have any questions for the guys at all from your side?
I think we have like around 5 minutes.
We are a little, on time.
Yeah, there's one question, since we are all talking to the customers, right? And it's very interesting for me to understand how business actually in terms of operations changes in this new normal, right? Because I had a conversation with the manager of a huge company, multinational company. He said that, you know what? We discovered that we saved 27 million on the business trips this year. This is a huge number. And this is actually, and he said, okay, now we think, were we really that wise with that spendings like a couple of years back? Because we have our business, up and running in the same manner. And at the same time, we said that we saved this, huge amount of money, right? So it brings a question to the business. Are we really that good with our operations? Are we doing everything in the optimal way, right? And this is why they are seeking for the answers, and the technology might be the answer here, right? And this is just an example, because I'm talking to a lot of banks, for example, right? And each bank asks me, do you have anything for the remote calls and conversations with the customer, like some specific, full functionality within your platform? Because they cannot use platforms like Zoom and Microsoft Teams for that purposes, because banks are very concerned about the security, right? And when we are talking about remote KYC or things like that, they need some new technologies. And I bet that all of you keep on getting these new requests from the business, from the customers with this new pandemic, as they start to rethink and reshape their operations. And as Stefan rightly mentioned, the virus became like an accelerator in this point, right? So they would have come to this at some point of time, but now they need to resolve and find a solution at this point of time, right now. So what do you think? Can anyone share their findings?
I think, I'm sorry, please.
Yeah, Ashok, I think you wanted to.
Yeah, I think the one specific topic you mentioned, we should connect offline in terms of audio conversation and video conversation between trade bureaus, the banks, and the customers in the digital world. How do you preserve that? Because they have to maintain 7 years of conversation history, and there is also ability to do compliance audit by FSA, right? Actually, I have a client, they do audio conversation recording for banks, so Barclays, Bank of America, Bank of England, they all are customers. And because for Creatio, we implemented Zoom and Microsoft Teams integration, we actually connecting Microsoft Teams into their platform for banks to record video conversation and to be able to provide that for FSA. So we might have a product solution in time to come. But I think it is it's a challenge, because when we say low-code technology, people think, oh, is it something very simple? Is it like a building blocks, like a Lego block? But on the other hand, there are some low-code products out there that can allow you to do virtually anything and everything, but it requires some technology knowledge to build that together, assemble together. I think here you got a hybrid solution, because there are a lot of capabilities out of the box. You can customize it to different business needs. So it's almost like we have to handle the customer on the business side, what they can do, show them the art, build some solution very rapidly and say, here is what the value is, here is a business benefit to your customers, to your employees, and then guide them to implement and bring in the technologies to make sure it's integrated, secure, etc. Otherwise, bank won't roll out anything. So the good point, Mike, it's sometimes the value could look too simple, but it requires a little bit of hand-holding. Especially, I like the art of showing. So if I'm able to, the technique I use is I listen to the customer and I go back to them within 2 days with the functionality that they can touch and feel. It's like if you want to buy a fancy car, you can look at the brochure, you can look at the magazine, you can go online, but nothing like going and seeing the car, right? So it's the same concept.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the speed with which you can deliver the result, it typically impresses the customer in a good way. Yeah, I agree with you.
And Mike, to that point, I think the speed becomes the necessity. I don't think that low code is the driving need of companies. I think it's the necessity. So once you get to the point that you're in a new environment, you started with $27 million of savings in sales costs. Companies for many years have been doing zero-based budgeting, where they say, okay, let's assume we do nothing and we build it back up. Well, now they have a real case of saying, what happens when we can't do anything? And they can selectively add back those things that were bringing value and eliminate those that don't. But on the flip side, they're going to be watching their customer needs and the competition. And as they see their competitors adding new features and capabilities to their digital platforms, it's going to be drawing their customers. Out of necessity, they're going to have to react quickly. And low code, having Creatio, they are well positioned to be able to respond to that, probably as fast or faster than the competition. So it becomes the enabler of how do you remain competitive. And these digital transformation models, and we've talked about various stats, is once you have them in place, they have a near zero marginal cost of operation for the next transaction. And so it allows companies, once they have a digital platform, to be able to add additional functions. So if you're in a traditional banking area, you may start with some basic e-commerce capabilities, but it might move into credit and payment and all insurance and all different products that they can begin to move into that. So I think Creatio's product, I've seen it firsthand, having those companies that have sitting there with their low code model, and all of a sudden they need to make changes quickly. It's if they weren't believers before, they are now.
Well, that's a really interesting point, because actually I didn't really think about it this way before. You do really have a very low marginal cost of adding functionality. You can create new pages in really a day or something, and usually there's a law of diminishing returns when you increase the quantity of something, but in a way, actually it enables you to expand your business, sometimes even without additional cost, which is very powerful.
Yeah, so Bill, that was a very good point, because at the end of the day, of course, you can add those functionalities. You can build up a new business process or modify the existing workflow. At the end of the day, you're doing that to grow your business, to get some edge over your competition. So, and this is actually what I'm hearing a lot from the customers when we are conducting the initial discovery. So why do you need that technology, right? How do you plan to benefit out of it? All customers, they're telling, okay, we need to get some competitive advantage. We need to acquire, more market share. We need to have something that our competitors don't. And that's actually a great example, because I'm working for emerging markets, right? So it's Middle East, Africa, Eastern Europe, and Asia. So we have two countries in Asia who chosen Creatio as the first, from financial sector, right? A bank in Bangladesh and a bank in Nepal. So no banks in Bangladesh and Nepal have a full-fledged CRM solution. So we were the first solution to be chosen in the banking industry of those countries to be implemented in the country. And they were looking to have some competitive advantage. And as soon as we started this implementation, we got just showered by requests from other banks, telling, we heard that you've been doing something, right? And we know that it might hurt our business as well. So can you share that experience? And they started to allocate budgets. They started those, internal evaluation processes, because it's not that easy for the bank or for organization of that sort to acquire an enterprise, enterprise software solution. They need to go over some complicated process, and they started to, initiating those processes, not to fall behind and not to lose their business. And this is exactly how it works. So yeah. All right, guys, I think we are out of time already. That was a very fruitful conversation, and thanks a lot for your participation.